Hello and welcome to the Crafty Contemplations podcast. Hi, welcome or welcome back. My name is Val and I have some knitting updates. I have some sewing updates and I'm excited to share what I've been working on. I'll start with what I'm wearing today, which is also my first finished object. And this is the Lusk tee by the Crafty. I completed this in July. It's now almost the end of August, so I feel like I'm doing okay on time. It's been like a month and a half-ish. I guess almost 2 months since we last chatted. So I feel like I'm doing okay timeline-wise. But I was able to finish this in July, and I have worn it twice now, I think, in the month of August. So I made this in Hempathy in the colorway Claret, and I actually bought this yarn at a local yarn store in North Carolina. I will look up the name to double check because I don't want to say the wrong name. But it's a super tiny little shop. Very nice people. I got really lucky when we went in. It was just us and the person who was working at the shop, at that time. And so we chatted a little bit. She was able to kind of guide me a little bit in what I was actually looking for. And this was a great suggestion actually on her part. So this is yarn made of hemp mainly. Made one modification to this pattern, which is I ended up skipping the little braid detail around the collar. I actually, as much as I enjoy this yarn, I actually think that was a little bit of like the struggle that I had with that particular section. I had never done that technique before, but it's a relatively simple technique. It was no trouble. The trouble that I had, as always, is tensioning. So I did it. I did it once. I wasn't happy with it. I ripped it back. I started doing it a second time. I was kind of debating with myself about like, should I change needle size? What's the best way to go about it? But I ended up, I maybe got like 10 or 12 stitches in maybe that second attempt. And at that point I was a little bit too stressed about it, I guess, to the point where I was like, yeah, this detail isn't worth it to me. I was also a little bit afraid of it making like it as a detail, making the collar too tight. I do not like a high fitting collar. Even this collar, which I think sits nicely and I think it looks nice on, even this collar is just like a smidge, like when I'm getting it over my head, I have like that moment where I'm like, oh, is this a little tight? So I ended up opting out of the braid detail, but everything else was pretty much done to pattern. I will pop in some finished pictures so that you can take a look. The only thing that I probably could have done with this, I could have put in the bust darts. I am really happy with the finished product without them. I think that the saving grace for this particular project is actually the yarn, because the yarn is so drapey, and I knew it would, right? Like I knew it was going to open up even more after I washed and blocked it. So that was kind of a conscious decision on my part to also not include the bust darts. Plus I just honestly couldn't be bothered. But if I were to do this pattern again, which I would be happy to do, and if I were doing it in a different yarn that I knew wasn't going to expand quite as much, then I would have probably put in the bust darts. I have one more finished object, which I do not have physically with me, but I do have a picture of it, so I will put it up on the screen. And I will, I guess, preface this with The last thing that we did as a family this summer was we did a 2.5 week road trip. So that was toward the end of July. It was lovely. We had a blast. I have a 3-year-old. My husband and I have a 3-year-old. And we were honestly, a little trepidatious about embarking on a road trip with a 3-year-old. She was an absolute champ. Really, she was incredible. She had her moments like every teenager does, but she was so great. We did have like a little tablet where we just downloaded a couple of movies so that we would have that as a backup option. And so we did pull that out a couple times, but by and large, she was, like I said, just an absolute champ. We pulled some like 6-hour days. Actually, once we did an 8-hour day, which we were not anticipating. We went in fully expecting that we would drive no more than 4 to 5 hours per day. But there were 2 to 3 days on the trip where we just decided to kind of push through, because she was doing so great. So that was awesome. In any case, we visited friends. So we visited friends in North Carolina and we visited friends in Virginia. And the first finished object that I have was for a friend that we saw and stayed with, who is expecting a little girl. So I started and finished this project in the car or during the road trip. And was able to gift it to her while we were up there. So that was just a really fun little side project, a little side quest, if you will. And funny enough, my first whip, so the first thing that I have actually to show you, besides my tea, my first work in progress was something that I started for one of the other friend that we saw and stayed with, and I am making her a Tulsta tank. She saw mine, which I have done in green, and she absolutely loved it. So we chatted a little bit. I knew from previous conversations what she wanted. So I knew the color that she wanted, and I also knew that she would be cautious about the length. So I did my particular tank top like quite cropped, and I knew that she didn't want that. So I actually started it on the way up, and then kind of surprised her with the fact that like I had started it. I had, kind of a vague hope that I would actually finish it while we were hanging out, but honestly, we were just having too much fun. It didn't come out like while we were there at all, which is totally fine. So in any case, all this to say, let me actually show you what I have. So this is, and actually let me get the yarn just so that I can give you the details. This is Truboo by Lionbrand. So it's 100% rayon from bamboo. I've used it a couple different times. This may not have been what I used for my Tulsta tank. Actually, now that I think about it, I think I might have used cotton bamboo. But either way, very, very similar yarn. So this is the colorway Coral. And one thing that I love about this is it's machine washable. So super easy to take care of. So in any case, what I have so far, let me show you. This pattern is worked bottom up. So this is the bottom of the garment. And then if you can see down here, I have started working one of the straps, and we're doing the V-neck option, the V-neck camming option. So I'm actually almost done with that first strap. I only have, I probably only have a couple inches to go for that first strap. All right, so let me write it up, put it right ways up for you. So what I decided to do for this particular project was, knowing that she would want it to be much longer than what I did, and potentially longer than like what the pattern calls for. I can't, because I can't remember the length of the pattern off the top of my head. And also knowing that plant-based fiber, rayon, I know how much this yarn stretches out. So I didn't want to guess for that part. So what I did was I did a provisional cast on for the bottom. I went ahead, because you know, it's worked in the round bottom up. So I did a provisional cast on here. Everything is stockinette all the way up, so that is super simple until you split. I take that back. Until you do bust darts, which there are not a lot of people in my life who I would knit bust darts for, but this particular friend is one of them. And so I did the bust darts for her, and then you have like another inch or so, and then you do the armholes. So it was a very quick start, like you just cast on and immediately go. I had to do this was my first provisional cast on ever, so I think I had to do it twice maybe to get it correct, because I like had a hard time, it twisted the first time I did it basically. But besides that, got it done, got it started, and I did the method of provisional cast on where you cast on to scrap yarn, or in this case I use a barber cord. So I have that all tangled up in here, and I just tied it off at the end so that way it'll hold its place. I plan to finish the straps, seam the straps together, block it. So I'll just be it'll be like just a hand wash. So I'll just be very careful with it, do a hand wash, lay it flat. And then the next time that I see her, I'm going to have her try it on from there. That way we'll be able to see the whole body of it. And then from that point, I will do the ribbing, whatever's left. So I have a feeling it might not need to be as long as she thinks it needs to be, just because of, like I said, with the rayon, like the weight of the yarn as you're wearing it kind of pulls the garment down a little bit. But we'll see. So I did that provisional cast on, that way I can adjust as needed to whatever her preferences are. This will not be finished, like I said, until the next time that I see her. So this is possibly a one and done whip. I'm not sure if you'll see it again, just depending on when that update happens. If I have the opportunity, I will show you a finished picture at some point. But that will be at no determined point in the future. Actually, while I have this bag out, I'll tell you the whip that I have not started yet, for those of you who might have remembered. I bought the yarn, I bought Knitting for Olive Pure Silk to do the Isabel top by the Knit Pearl Girl. And I just got a little distracted on these side quests. This was actually one that I had planned to start on my road trip. And then when we were packing up, I just kind of had that thought of like, you know what, we're going to see these two people. You know, maybe I should start these that I've had in the back of my mind for a little while. So that's what I did, and I don't regret that choice at all. But I still have not cast on my Isabel top, so it's still on my list. The good news is I live in Florida, and there are very, very few cold days here. So summer knitting as a thing is basically all year long knitting for me. So whenever I actually do cast on and finish it, chances are pretty high that I will be able to wear it right away. I'll share another whip that I'm pretty excited about. And this is a mashup between two patterns. So I had been, I think I might have found this on the Hobby website. In any case, it is free on Hobby. But I should probably look this up before I actually say all of this. I don't know if there is a paid version of this pattern available that might have more sizes, because I know sometimes that happens. In any case, the free version of the pattern that is on Hobby is not size inclusive. But this is the Marianne top. I think it's super cute. I love the ruffle detail. I like it. I really, really do. The deep V in the back is not exactly what I would be looking for. just in the fear that it might, cause issues with bra coverage and things like that. But having just started this Tulsa tank pattern, I knew that I had the Tulsa tank pattern and that the V-neck cami is really nice. And, having done that one for myself, I know that I like the way that it fits. So I basically mashed up these two patterns. I got the free version of the Marianne top, and then I have, this will be the third time that I'm using my Tulsa tank pattern, which of course I paid for. But I really wanted that ruffle. So I did some math. I had intended to just double the number of stitches needed, do the ruffle, and then decrease. So halve the number of stitches. I did a long tail cast on, and so that did not quite work because I was like maybe 25-ish stitches away from like what would have been doubled. Maybe only, yes, something like that. I was like close, like 25, 30 something stitches away from what would have been like the doubled number when I ran out of yarn. And there was no way that I was going to do those 320 something stitches over again just to add an additional like 30 something stitches. So that meant that I had to do a little bit of math, but it's okay. I made it happen. I got the math done. And I have my tank top started. So these are on like fairly small needles, so it's kind of squished up in any case. So excuse the squishiness. It's going to be a little bit hard to tell exactly, but this is my mashup tank with a ruffle hem. So I'm working, I guess that part was probably obvious from my cast on story, but I'm working bottom up. And so this is the ruffle. I'll zoom in a little bit so that you can see where that ruffle joins. You can see the like the decreases. And I think it'll just be so much more obvious once once it's actually hanging straight. The ruffle will really be much more obvious there. But I kept the detail with the Marianne top, which has the little rolled hem and everything. And then once I did the decreases, then you're just working straight in the round. So no increases or decreases there. I am going to, and then a couple more like little mashups. So I used the gauge from the Marianne top. So it's a little bit of a smaller gauge than the Tulsa tee. But I kind of like compared numbers and just made sure that I was going to be good there. So basically I cast on like for the Marianne bottom, did those decreases, did all that math, and then worked out that I would have, so I worked it out to be the same number of stitches for the size up in the Marianne, for the size up in the Tulsa tank to account for the slightly smaller gauge of the Marianne tank. I hope that made sense. This is also Truboo. So I actually had this yarn left over from another project that I did. So this colorway is Mushroom, I believe. Yes, colorway Mushroom. And I really like it. Kind of all the benefits that I mentioned earlier. I love having something that is machine washable. Although I'll always like lay flat to dry, even if I do machine wash. And it's like fairly durable. I've had, like I said, I've used this for a couple other projects. So I think it wears really well. I think it looks good over time. So all that is fantastic. And this has been a phenomenal project to have right at the beginning of the school year, because this particular project carried me through many pre-planning meetings. Where, as we do, we need a little bit of assistance in focusing on, during the meeting. So having my hands moving on something that I'm not thinking about, but something where I'm having my hands moving, frees up that brain space to actually be, paying attention and taking in some of that meeting information. So that was wonderful to have on hand. I think Oh no, I have one more whip. Let's see. Let's see if I can finagle. I'm like surrounded by all of my knitting things here. Okay, so this is, I'm gonna have to check the name of the pattern. This is the Vesna shawl. I will put some info up there. I don't have a ton of shawls. I would say I have two. I have one that is like a blanket wrap is what she calls it. It's the Flurries in the Wind wrap by Two of Wands, I believe. That lives in my classroom, and like the kids all know it. Like they, see me reach for it when I'm cold. I just wrap it over whatever, the over top of whatever I'm wearing. Sometimes I have kids ask me to borrow it. They're like, I'm so cold today. Can I borrow your wrap? So I have that. It's been an absolute workhorse of like a garment because it has, like I said, it has lived in my classroom ever since I made it, which I made it in 2019. So could have been 2020. Either way, that's an excellent amount of wear that I've gotten out of that blanket wrap. And I have another wrap that really, it's so delicate. It's absolutely gorgeous. In any case, it doesn't quite, it serves more of like the purpose of a scarf rather than a shawl just because of how delicate it is. It's beyond gorgeous, but it's not like necessarily providing a lot of warmth. So I have Malabrigo single merino in these two colorways. I'll have to put the names of the colorways up. But I have this lovely purple, deep purple, and then like a pale pink blush color. And I had actually started another scarf project with this. It was a knit along that was happening a couple years back. I thought it looked really cool in the photos, but to be honest, like once I started it, I kind of felt pretty quickly that I was not going to be that into actually like wearing it. It was beautiful. It was a beautiful pattern, but it didn't feel like it was going to be very, very well used or used very much. So, it became a hibernating whip. I was just, I don't know. I felt bad ripping it out, but I wasn't like motivated to continue working on it. The age-old debate. So finally, I decided that I was going to be brave. I was going to rip it back. I was going to embrace the reusable possibilities in our chosen craft of knitting by, ripping that back to try something new. And I'm really, really glad I did. So in any case, these two beautiful yarns are becoming the Vesna shawl. And this is going to be a very, very, very slow whip. I am telling you that right now. It is absolutely gorgeous. It has a lot of details. So it has like textured stitches. There's plenty of garter and, simple eyelets and stuff that break up the textured stitches, but the big texture so far is this fern stripe detail, which definitely takes some time. Not because it's difficult, but just because it actually like takes time to get through those rows because you're like sliding stitches back and forth and stuff. Anyway, all that to say, I absolutely love how this project is coming out. I will put like a picture of the pattern up so that, well, I'm sure I've done it already by this point, but that way you can see what the finished object is meant to look like. But it will use both balls pretty much to completion. She gives some instructions on like how to weigh it so that you're not quite at the halfway point for each color just because of how the color stripes are set up. but she gives some instructions in the pattern to go about making sure you're getting the most out of the 2 skeins of yarn possible. But I just really love the way that this looks so far. I love the details. I love the different, you know, striping patterns. It will definitely need a block to kind of open up everything to its fullest potential. But I really love the combination of these colors, and I think the single merino is going to be an amazing shawl. I really am, I don't know, I'm just feeling like I want those big shawls, like oversized shawls, blankets, schlankets, if you will, to like wrap up in, but still look very, I don't know, I think the benefit of wearing kind of like a statement piece like that, like a shawl, is that you still end up looking kind of like put together, so to speak. I think it's a little bit more intentional than maybe just throwing on, you know, like a sweatshirt or something like that. So I'm excited, really excited to work on that and have that as a finished object. Right now, this one is living as my right before bed project. So sometimes, as you know, I'm laying down for bed, sometimes I'll read for a little while before going to sleep, but sometimes I'll pull this out and knit for a little while before going to sleep. So it's been, the one thing I'll say too about the stripe sequence is that has been cool, at least here in the beginning, because the stripe sequences are so small. So it's been like such a great, you know, such a great excuse of like, oh, well, let me just finish this particular sequence and then I'll put it away for the night. So that's been a fun little detailed project. This one's definitely the type that you have to pay a little attention to, like I said, when you get to certain stitch patterns. So specifically this lovely fern stitch, which looks really nice, if I do say so myself. I should say, I don't know, this is the first time I've done the fern stitch, so I mean, I don't have any prior experience with it in any other different types of yarn or anything like that. I did find that the directions call for a double yarn over for the fern stitch. I could not do the double yarn over. Like it was creating too much loose yarn. And I don't know if that's just because of my tension or what, but I've been doing the fern stitch with just a single yarn over, and that's been working very well. It's kept the fern stitch pattern, fern stitch section of the pattern a similar tension, I guess, similar gauge, similar, you know, it's just kept it even with the rest of the pattern. So that's just a note if you're interested in this specific shawl, or if you're just interested in the fern stitch in general. I don't know if that's like a common thing. Again, I don't know if it could be the type of yarn, since I am using a yarn that I have, like it's been spun up for a while, or balled up for a while, I guess. I don't even know why I didn't cake this. Maybe I didn't have like my actual ball winder with me. But it's been balled up for a while, so I don't know if it's because it's been sitting like that for a long time, or in this case, like you can see, there's still a little bit of curl from me ripping this back out. So I don't know if either of those could be a factor of why my fern stitch was a little wonky with the 2 yarn overs. But I used that to try to rectify it, and it seems to have worked perfectly. So just a little heads up, if you need to, if you're also struggling with the fern stitch, maybe try a single looser yarn over than doing a double yarn over. All right, so the last thing that I have to chat with you about are some acquisitions. Now, I feel very lucky because these were gift acquisitions. So the well, the first one that I'll show you is from my friend. Okay, this one was a little bit farther away. Actually, I'll just fold up the whole Ziploc baggie. So, you know, I love me a good green. This, I don't have any information on it. I am assuming that it is worsted. It's fairly thick. Let's see, there are 4 skeins. So this is, I think, one of those situations where I'll definitely have to swatch to try to figure out what I should do with this particular yarn. I'm thinking, speaking of my shawl that I love like wrapping around and feeling cozy in, I know I want to do a poncho at some point soon. And I did have a yarn in mind for it, but actually I think that this could also be a really cool poncho in the sense that I think it doesn't take quite as much yarn as a sweater. And because you're not like fitting sleeves and stuff, I feel like I could be a little bit looser with gauge and it probably like wouldn't be a big deal. So I kind of have that as a possibility in mind. Again, I don't have any information that comes with it, so I don't know what material it is, I don't know the yardage, but I think what I'll probably do is weigh it and just look up some, maybe I'll do the lighter test to see if I have an idea of what the fiber could be. But assuming that it is worsted, like DK or worsted, I think once I weigh it, I'll be able to at least guesstimate a little bit, you know, how much I actually have there. And then maybe, like I said, something that maybe is not a full sweater pattern could be a nice option. Who knows, maybe there's like a fun worsted weight shawl or whatever that I could do. The only thing that I'll want to take, I don't think hesitant is the right word, but I think I'll just want to take it into consideration, is that I'll end up needing to alternate skeins with whatever I do, just because of like the stripe pattern on the yarn. I think probably for it to look nice and smooth, like a nice cohesive finished object, I think I'll probably want to alternate skeins. So that's the only thing that I'll have to think about. But I am just loving these different greens. I mean, they're just all beautiful. You know, greens and pinks, like that's where, that's the color palette that I'm living in right now. So I think they're all like perfect, you know, they just look so nice. So I'll just have to kind of finagle that and make sure that, that is like a nice cohesive finished product. Okay, so that's acquisition number 1, gift from a friend. Super kind. I'm excited to use that once I kind of take a gander and see what I'll be able to make. Okay, so my next acquisition, and like I'm not trying to humble brag, y'all, but this is like your sign to make sure that your partner supports your hobbies. My husband, we both enjoy thrifting for just like very different reasons. I love to thrift everything, like clothes, you know, crafting supplies, like anything like that. I take it back, maybe it's not like different reasons, but he will thrift like certain clothes, like if he finds something that's like very obvious. I don't think he has as much patience as I do to like go through clothing racks. Although I have actually thrifted him stuff before. So that's been kind of fun. But the one thing that he like has to do anytime he goes into a thrift store is he likes to look at the golf supplies. You know, golf clubs is typically what they have. He's also bought like the bags there before, and then hand carts and stuff like that you use for this particular sport. Not really my thing, but you know, I've picked up on a few vocabulary words since he's been playing. So he loves to thrift and look for that stuff because, you know, you never know what's going to end up in a thrift store. So the funny thing is, though, I've like trained him, so to speak, because every time he goes into a thrift store, mostly Goodwill, because there are a couple that are fairly near in our immediate like driving loops. There are a couple. that we visit fairly regularly. So he like knows the kind of like craft stuff that I'm looking for, yarn specifically. So all this to say, he came home with a haul. He spent $13 and got like probably, I don't know, at a conservative, I would say probably like $200 worth of yarn, which is amazing. And what's more is the colors are phenomenal. So I'll save the best for last. There are a couple like random skeins in there that I am not even gonna like bother showing, just because they're like they're definitely not garment yarn. So I'm not sure what I'll do with them. Maybe I'll donate them back. Maybe I'll bring them to school and we'll use them for like weaving projects or something. But there were like a couple like super thick, like chunky yarns that probably won't end up being in my rotation. But the first thing that he found, and these came in two Goodwill bags. So what they do, at least at our local Goodwills, is they just like put together these bags. So it'll be like a bag of yarn. And in this case, they were like, I don't know, $6 or something like that. So the first one that was in there is from Spaghetti Yarns. And this is the colorway Tagliatelle. So hand dyed in the Pacific Northwest. So actually this yarn has traveled quite a ways to be here. Let me hold it up so that you can see. I think it's kind of funny that it's like a pasta inspired yarn, but it's such a maybe even like beachy color is the right word, like with these lovely teals and blues. It feels very like ocean inspired to me. So this is fingering. It is, let's see, 80/20 superwash merino nylon, 460 yards. So like your basic like sock yarn, maybe that's what I'll do actually, is socks. I don't know. I have an ongoing sock project that I haven't touched in a little while, so we'll see. In any case, this was the first item that he found. So this one was great. And the next one is 5 skeins of this. So this is called Shelter. It's American Targhee Columbia wool, and this is from Brooklyn Tweed. So I know this is worsted weight. So it's 140 yards, only like 5 stitches per inch for gauge, 4.5 to 5 stitches. But it's a super cool, like, I mean, it's like plied, right? So you've got like your black and white plied together. I don't know if that's gonna focus. If I had my face, maybe. There it goes. So it's like a very, very strong contrast, very cool looking. It's definitely a little woolly, right? It's wool. So it's definitely like a little woolly. So I really have no idea what to do with this yet. So if you have ideas, I mean, it's 140 yards, and like I said, I think there are 5 of them in the bag. I didn't take all of them out. I think there are 5 of them. So I'm not sure what the best approach to this particular one will be, but I'm excited. I definitely think that this is not something this will be an interesting challenge, because this is not a yarn that I would have picked out for myself, but I like it. So this will be an interesting challenge to see, like, is this something that I can use up, like keep in stash and use up? Is this something that maybe like I'll eventually need to pass on? I don't know yet, but we'll see. Okay, so then the real haul, this is the one that like he knew for sure I was going to be obsessed with. And this beautiful magenta color. This is a discontinued yarn. So this is from Cloudborn Fibers, It is merino alpaca sport. The colorway is called magenta. So it's 80% superwash merino wool, 20% baby alpaca. It is a sport weight, and it's 137 yards per skein. This is made with love in Peru. And this is how many he found. I think there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think there are 12 in the package. I think that's right, because I think that, and because then there was one out. So I think he said that there were 13 total. So this is like definitely a sweater's quantity. I also, you know, I've done a couple things with alpaca, and I really love alpaca. And I think the combination of merino and alpaca will be really nice, because you get the stability of the merino, but the drape of the alpaca. So it's kind of, you know, like the perfect scenario. And since it's sport weight, I think it will be light enough for me to make something that I'll actually wear. Because, you know, here in Florida, you have to battle with the outside temperature and the inside temperature. And, you know, even just my classroom, like on days where it's cold in there, I mean, it is cold to the point that like my fingers are like stiff, because like it gets so cold, like it will drop below 70 degrees in there. So anyway, so all that to say, this was a lovely acquisition by my dear husband who saw it, did some quick Googling, and put it in his cart. So very excited to figure out what I want to do with this. We'll see what I end up deciding with the other yarns, but for this alone, you know, $13 for 13 of these, even without counting any of the other yarn, is just an absolute steal. So super excited. All right, I will wrap up with just kind of the general update, which I already kind of shared that, you know, how we finished up summer with our road trip and everything. And I mentioned that we are already back to school. So in my district, students went back August 10th. So we had a week of pre-planning, and then students came back and joined us. So we just finished the second week of school. So things are gearing up for a busy year. I think I'm at the point where it's funny, because I definitely know that the last time I sat with you, I was like, yeah, I need to really focus on being more monogamous with my knitting. And like 2 seconds later, as soon as I walked away, that immediately went out the window. But I think what happened is, like, with the road trip and then like the end of summer, I just kind of like panic cast a bunch of things on. And so now I need to like work my way through those to the point where I can once more be a little bit more monogamous with my knitting. I think, and again, I think for me, monogamous means something that I can easily transport, stockinette in the round, very easy. I do not have to. I think my thing is when I am just like out and about, like I don't even want to have to pull out the pattern, you know. I just want to know that I can knit in the round for any amount of time that I have in the waiting room or whatever, and then just shove it right back into my project bag as soon as that waiting period is up. And then like one other project that takes a little bit more brain power, or at least takes at least necessitates following the pattern. So I think that's really ultimately where I want to get myself, is I want to get myself to 2 projects at a time, 1 to take places, 1 to keep at home. I say all that now, and probably, you know, as soon as I finally cast on the Isabel top or whatever else I'm going to do next, you know, that'll go out the window. But it is gearing up to be a busy school year. So I am, knitting as a hobby for me is a great stress relief. it always makes me feel really good to like have something, like be working toward the project goal. But the process of knitting as well is that kind of stress relief for me. Okay, so last thing that I have to share is a finished sewing project. And maybe also, like, I want to get a little advice from you. So if you all have some suggestions, let me know. I will put some pictures up, but I just finished sewing this dress. And I'm very torn on this as a garment. So let me just get into it. So first of all, I did this with thrifted fabric. I'm definitely a beginner sewist. I've been sewing off and on for a while, but I don't give it the attention and like time that it truly deserves as a hobby, mostly because of space. So we live in a very small home. Knitting is great because it lives in a bag and I can put that bag away when I'm done with it, take that bag out when I'm ready to use it. Sewing as a hobby is a little bit more difficult. You know, I have my sewing machine, I have my serger. You know, even fabric takes up storage. I mean, you know, just like my yarn takes up storage. But, you know, it takes up, I think the biggest issue with sewing is that it just takes up so much horizontal space while you're actually working on it, right? So basically I take up my entire kitchen table when I'm in the middle of a sewing project. So all that being said, I love to thrift fabric. Basically I just look for cotton or mostly cotton bed sheets. Tablecloths too. I found some really cool tablecloths. But basically, as long as the content is mostly cotton, I'll go ahead and snag it. So I'll get, you know, like a huge queen sheet for like $5 maybe. And so then I've got enough fabric for a project, but I don't have to feel precious about it. You know, as a fabric, I don't have to worry if I ruin it, because it's just so cheap, and it's something that, you know, because it's secondhand, it's something that somebody was getting rid of anyway, right? So I kind of don't have to feel bad if I also ruin it. So that has been like a great approach for me, because it's just given me the confidence to actually like work with fabric and try it out without feeling too much stress about it. Bought this pattern, printed it out, sewed all my pattern pieces together, did all of that. I cut out my pattern pieces. The way that I cut out my pattern pieces is I put weights. So I actually use my daughter's Magnetiles because she has 100 of them. So I like put them out onto the pattern. So I lay the fabric out, I put the pattern down, I put the tiles out to hold it in place, and then I cut around. So I did notice after I cut out the pattern pieces that this particular dress, the patterns were cut on the fold, which I mean is pretty common. But I did notice that I can't remember if it was the front or the back of the bodice part, it was slightly off. Like when I opened it up and then refolded it in half, like the edges didn't quite match up. So I kind of like trimmed a little bit extra there, but I knew that they were like ever so slightly off. I'm explaining all this to like get to the part that I'm like not very happy about with the dress, which is the bodice, which is unfortunately like a very important part of the dress. So it's supposed to be a V-neck. I struggled a little bit with the sewing part of the V-neck, and I don't know if it's because of the specific technique, or if my sewing machine just like got away from me a little bit. I didn't think it had in the moment, but it's certainly possible. In any case, my V-neck turned into like, I don't know, even a little bit more of a scoop neck here, which I don't love. And it could harken back to like that potential issue from actually cutting the piece out itself. but there's a little bit of unevenness, like from side to side. So you can see all of that through the photo. I don't think it looks terrible. You know, like there's a little puckering, but like it's okay. When I wore this to work already actually, and what I did was I just put a t-shirt over it and just tied the t-shirt, you know, right at my waist. So it really, like, you couldn't necessarily tell it was a dress. It was just like a super flowy skirt, and honestly it was great, and I got a ton of compliments on it like that too. So I'm like, it still functions as a garment. But then the other kind of gripe that I have, and this one I think might be the fault of the pattern, is the lining isn't long enough. So, like, you cut out the two bodice pieces, you cut out the front and the back, and then in the sewing process, you cut this lining out of the same fabric. And the lining just stops, like, let me sit back. The lining literally stops like right here. So it really needs to come down just a little bit farther so that you don't see like the line of that. And I am not sure like if this is an issue with like size inclusivity. Like I realized that I have a little bit more like, you know, I have a little more generosity in that particular department, but like, I don't know if this is like, if the lining is supposed to come down, like kind of past the bra, or, and then the stabilizing part. So the liner part, even for the back of the bodice, like curls up a little bit just because it's so short, even though I did sew it down, right? Like I sewed it down, to match the middle seam of the bodice as well, which is what the pattern directed as well. I will probably go down, like go all the way around, and I'll probably hand tack the lining down. If I keep it exactly as is, I'll probably do that in the hopes that that will help it lie a little bit flatter. I also think, and this is the part where I'm a little bit stuck, because I don't know if it's worth it for me to try to rip back that neckline and redo the neckline to see if I can get it to sit right. I'm not quite sure. I think I probably should, but it's like, once I get a sewing pattern to that point, I just don't know if there's any turning back for me. I don't know. The last thing about this pattern is it did not come with pockets. So I cut out my own pocket pattern and added them. And I've done pockets on dresses before, so I know how to do it. I looked up a tutorial, like, just to double check, but as it turns out, I've added the pockets too low. So I added the pocket to like the first ruffle, which is like the top part of the skirt portion. But really I should have added the pocket to the very bottom of the bodice and had it just sit there, like right at my hip. I can still get my hands in there. I can still use the pockets, but they are a little bit low for what would be like traditional, or like maybe even comfortable is the right word. So with that being said, maybe you can give me some advice. Like I said, for $5 worth of fabric, am I gonna take the time to try to fix the bodice? I'm not sure. But if I were to do this pattern again, because I still have, you know, all the pattern pieces, I can go find another sheet with a fun pattern on it and I can try again. I just need to have a plan in place, I think, before trying again. So here's what I'm thinking, if you can visualize with me, is if I did like straight across for the bodice, like kept everything else the same, but then cut the bodice straight across instead of in that V. And then on top of that, thickened the straps just a smidge. Because it would, number one, be a little bit simpler sewing. I wouldn't have to worry about the V-neck part that seemed to have tripped me up. And then on top of that, it would be a little bit more bra friendly, because if you see the photos in the back, you know, it doesn't come quite all the way down. So those are my thoughts if I want to attempt the project again, which I am on the fence about. I just love the the drape, like the silhouette, that's the word for it. I love the silhouette of this dress. I think it's so cute. You know, I think it's like a real statement, like just to have that much flow and drape and, you know, fullness in a dress like that. And I really, really loved it. So I just have to kind of see how I want to approach it. If I want to just try again exactly to pattern, and just try to like get everything to lie exactly flat this time, or if I want to try it again with those like minor modifications, thinking that that might help me get that part done a little bit more reliably, I guess. So I think that's a pretty solid update. I think we've been here for like an hour now. So I think thank you so much for joining me on this journey. Like I said, I'd love to have your input for this sewing project. If you think that, you know, whatever you think I should do to try to redo it, please drop a comment telling me what you're working on. I would love to hear. And if you have any ideas for some of my acquisitions, I would love to hear what your current favorite patterns are. I can't wait to get into the Isabel top. I know it's having a huge moment now, as is just, you know, that kind of lace style in general as we round out summer 2026. So if you've got a finished lace project that's or a you know, work in progress lace project that's on your needles, I would love to see how that's going for you. So all that being said, thanks so much for watching and see you next time. In the meantime, please be well.